Yes, my dear friends, today I will tell you about a situation I have observed. Every morning I see my neighbor's son when he goes to work. He wears a cheap jacket and carries a thermos in his hand. If you ask me, he is dressed exactly the way he should be. I used to be like him. During the times when I served as a soldier, my salary was never large. I was earning about the same as an ordinary civil servant, and I had a standard income. But now, while drinking my morning coffee, I have no bills that stress me, no pressure from a superior or a boss, and no worries. The reason I am in this position today is thanks to the savings I quietly accumulated for years behind that ordinary appearance in the past. Nobody knew, nobody asked, and nobody understood. This was my greatest strategy. First, I need to ask you this. Do you want to look rich, or do you want to actually become rich? Can you see the difference between these two questions? Because these two things almost never meet in the same person. Most people think that rich people drive expensive cars, but the real truth is different. Wealthy people who invest often prefer very simple and economical clothing and tend to use ordinary everyday vehicles. Because instead of spending money on showing off, they focus on growing it. On the other hand, some people go into debt to buy expensive cars even though their income is not high. From the outside, these people appear rich, but in reality, the situation is very different. What we need to understand here is this. The person who lives simply is the one who grows their wealth. I met this type in the Army. A young officer who had just received a promotion would immediately buy a car. Half of his salary would go to installment payments. On top of that came stylish branded clothes, the latest model phone, and the rent of a luxurious house. It all looked wonderful. About 10 years later, I met him again financially in the exact same place, with the same stress, only older. During those 10 years, I invested every small or large amount I saved from my salary into opportunities without distinguishing between them. Nobody noticed this. Nobody asked, "What are you doing?" Because my appearance gave them no reason to ask. My ordinary clothes, a car that did the job and was enough for me, and my simple life. But in the background, my investments were quietly growing and continuing to work. Yes, my dear friends, research conducted over the years shows us a very interesting truth. When researchers studying wealth examined the lifestyles of millionaires, they discovered that many of them do not live flashy and expensive lives as we imagine. A large portion of these millionaires do not come from wealthy families and built their wealth by staying loyal to the plans they made. Moreover, many of them have lived in the same house for years and do not feel the need for expensive tools or equipment. In fact, the most surprising finding of the research is this. These millionaires do not live in luxury neighborhoods. They often live in ordinary districts. The reason is that while many high-income individuals choose to spend their money to display status, people who actually accumulate wealth act differently and add more wealth to their wealth. Because these millionaires know this simple calculation very well, money spent unnecessarily and for show today eliminates an investment opportunity that could grow for years. That is why the choices of truly wealthy people are usually simple and economical. Instead of expensive brands, their real preference is economical and price-performance options. When you look at the richest people in the world, you will see similar examples. Some of them use the same car for years. Some continue to live in the first house they bought, without caring that it has become old. Because they pursue not looking rich, but actually being rich. Behind this behavior lies a strong psychology and an unshakable mindset. Researchers noticed long ago that people do not buy products only for their needs. The products we buy are often messages we send to others. A luxury product is often purchased not because it is better or more equipped, but because of the status represented by the person who buys it. Yet an expensive watch does not show time better, and an expensive bag does not carry items better. There is a serious difference between buying a product for need and buying it for image. The problem is that such spending creates a very large opportunity cost in the long term, because that money could have been invested. Every unnecessary and expensive purchase is a piece taken away from future savings. What is interesting is this. Most people who have truly built wealth continue the same habits even after reaching millions. This is called the habit of discipline. In other words, these people have turned discipline into a philosophy of life, because they know very well that the habits that create wealth are the same habits that protect it. Now, I will tell you a truth you may never have thought about. Visible wealth makes you a target for crime. According to Javelin research, identity theft occurs in 6.4% of the general population, while among individuals with assets of $1 million or more, this rate rises to 8.1%. The Federal Trade Commission announced that Americans lost $10.3 billion to fraud in 2023. Looking rich means announcing to the world what you have. Looking rich can put us on the radar of people with bad intentions and make us their target. One benefit of appearing ordinary is that it protects us from this situation. Social dynamics also come into play at this point. If you drive a luxury car, people expect you to pay the bill at expensive restaurants. If you wear brand clothes, the spending level around you increases. On top of all this, think about one more thing. When you appear wealthy, your relationships change. The simplest example is this: do they love you or your money? You can never know. But people who live ordinary lives and do not show off never face this question. Their friendships are based on who they are, not on what they have. I experienced this myself. After retirement, I still live in the same neighborhood with the same people. Nobody knows exactly what my financial situation is, and this gives me incredible peace. The authors of the book, The Millionaire Next Door, made a very clear distinction. PAWs, meaning Prodigious Accumulators of Wealth, and UAWs, meaning Underaccumulators of Wealth. This distinction has nothing to do with investments or income. It is completely about behavior and lifestyle. A civil servant earning $30,000 a year may be far more of a PAW than a doctor earning $500,000 a year. The formula is this: multiply your age by your annual gross income, then divide by 10. If you are 30 years old and earn $60,000 a year, you should have savings of $180,000. If you have less than that, it is not a coincidence that you are watching this video right now. UAWs live in luxury. They are often educated and intelligent people. They understand compound interest very well in theory, but behaviorally they do not apply it, because every spending decision becomes a competition. A car better than your brother's car, a watch more expensive than your friend's watch. The difference between a $30,000 car and an $80,000 car turns into approximately $270,000 in 25 years, with a 7% annual return. The painful cost of looking rich appears here. This cultural programming begins early, my dear friends. We grow up with the belief that if someone has money, they live in luxury. If you don't show it, it means you don't have it. Advertisements on television glorify flashy lives. They tell us that buying transforms identity. Someone who believes this narrative spends all their income maintaining their appearance. If you fall into this trap, when you reach the age of 55, you may have the latest car and an expensive watch, but your retirement account will be empty and you will not have economic freedom. The person who rejects it builds quietly. At 55, they arrive with a freedom that others cannot even imagine. I have tasted that freedom, and I assure you that feeling gives a pleasure that no car, no watch, and no brand can provide. You also gain a silent advantage in negotiations. A customer who goes to a car dealership with a simple car is treated differently than one who arrives with a very expensive latest model vehicle. The same applies to craftsmen, sellers, and contractors. People often estimate how much the person in front of them can pay and determine the price accordingly. Warren Buffett once said something interesting about this. Because he lives simply, many people do not realize how wealthy he is, and therefore no one tries to inflate prices for him unnecessarily. This is where the power of invisible wealth appears. By staying away from showiness, you increase your bargaining power. But if you look rich, the opposite can happen. These small price differences can create a serious impact over the years. People who look ordinary usually pay normal prices. But those trying to look rich often end up paying more for many things without realizing it. The psychological benefit is also quite significant. Research shows that luxury purchases provide temporary happiness. After a while, you get used to the product, and it gradually loses its value in your eyes. For example, a Porsche excites you for a few weeks. Then it begins to feel like an ordinary car. Every visible purchase permanently causes financial erosion. Invisible wealth works differently. A growing net worth creates a lasting sense of security that does not fade with adaptation. You know you can handle any emergency. You could even leave your job if you wanted. Your future and your freedom are secured. This background security affects everything. Decisions are based less on fear. Relationships become more sincere. Nights become calmer. I feel this every morning. I wake up not with financial anxiety, but with curiosity about what the day will bring. And believe me, that feeling is priceless. Now I will give you clear numbers. Someone who earns $100,000 a year and saves 25% reaches about $1.7 million in 25 years with a 7% return. Someone who saves only 5% of the same income and spends the rest on appearance reaches only about $340,000 in the same period. The first one looks middle class. The second one looks rich. The first one is actually rich. The second one is financially fragile. After 25 years, the difference in net worth reaches 5 times. Remember that both made a choice, but only one made compound choices. Real success, my dear friends, is not measured by the things you buy. It is measured by the things you do not have to buy. Not by the objects people see, but by the freedom provided by the money you did not spend and kept aside. That old car standing in the parking lot represents a choice most people cannot understand. Choosing to let money grow over time instead of chasing the applause of others. Choosing to build a strong future instead of showing off. People who feel superior when they look at that car may still have to work years later because they have no options. But the person driving that car could stop working tomorrow if they wished, because they have gained financial freedom. What the years have taught me is this: people who truly build wealth invest not in showiness, but in discipline. Because wealth is not in what you show others. It is in what you allow to grow, in protecting it, in increasing it patiently. When the right choices are made at the right time, they always show their effect. I love you all, my dear friends. See you again.